What's it like when you go to a club in Chicago and then they start to play Wizkid or, suddenly as soon as they start to play Nigerian music or Sakrodi,
So one time I was at this fashion for charity event, and there was this popular song last year. I forget, like this
From GH or Nigeria.
GH. Every bar was playing it. I forget the song, but like it was American songs, and then suddenly it was a Ghanaian song, and I remember I was just smiling. Like you guys realize, like God,
we made it.
My mood entirely changed, and I didn't even realize, right, that my mood had changed. Because sometimes home just, like you said, home just hits you. So it definitely felt those moments. Yeah.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 2 of Curating Dreams, a Creatives podcast. A series of conversations with 2 friends of mine, extraordinary humans doing awesome things on personal, social fronts, overflowing with courage, compassion, and love. Their opinion matters to me, and over the next few episodes, you'll understand why. My name is Tettey, and I'm joined by
Akosua Hanson
and Poetra, Asantewa.
This time we're discussing the places we call home. So I wrote something down. Home, a place of perfection, divinity even, where logic has no bearing. I am home. What comes to mind?
Home, a place of perfection.
Divinity even, a place of perfection, divinity even, where logic has no bearing. I am home. Appealing to the poets in you both.
Ooh, juicy.
I know, right?
So juicy. Oh man, I mean, the words are a beautiful expression of it. Obviously, there is a discussion of places and home, and home is a physicality and home is a non-physicality, right? Yeah. So I like the use of the divine in there, because I was actually just thinking, it's so crazy. I was just thinking today on my way here, where I live, there's a specific way I open the shutters between 5:30 and 6:20 p.m. in the evenings. And there's a specific angle of my bed. There's a specific way I sit around that time and set up things. And I realized is how my place was set up, how my parents did my bedroom back at home where I lived, at home. And I brought that. And I just realized I brought that with me to this new place I'm staying with by myself. And that was home I carried.
Where you find your zen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like it's the same house, but yeah.
I think it was a program I was watching. No, I remember. I've been watching this Indian guru. His name is Sadhguru.
Sadhguru,
yeah, he's a spiritual leader, not judgmental, which is why I like him. He doesn't lean on moral foundations. It's not even logical, but I think it's humanity spiritual, yeah. And he says that if you've noticed, there many times you go to a place, if you've been there often enough, there's a space, a seat that sort of belongs to you, that you want to stay in, and that you are most comfortable, And I think that's how and there's some energy, yeah. It's not just your imagination. There's actually something that comes to you when you, Or called deep streets.
You used it.
I know, right? Asantewa.
When it comes to home, speaking of the physicality, I struggle a bit, with calling places home. It takes me a while, places to assimilate. And when I moved to Chicago, for 2 years, my home was not furnished, and that's because in my head I was like, this is temporary. This is temporary. I don't want to invest in a space and fall in love with it. One of the things I hate is moving, packing. I hate that thing. Like, I hate changing. I hate change, even though it has to happen all the time.
The uncertainty.
So when it comes to physicality, like, once I get used to something, it's very hard to switch, to change it up. Once I'm comfortable with a space, I don't really want to drastically change it. And because what you were saying about, carrying some part of home with you, like I see that a lot when I was growing up. Some things that I'm now seeing how conscious my parents were, like about how their home looked, having flowers lined up a certain way, being conscious about growing sunflowers, being conscious about having gardens, and then growing up and like that's my version of home. Like when I have that, I feel like yes, finally my home is complete. And so like we carry, some of the homes that we recreate or create, they are inherited.
Give the old folks some credit.
So of course in the physicality again, I think there are certain things that I've definitely inherited from my parents, how they did it, and I want to see it to recognize it as home. I may tweak it a bit, but to make it my own. But yeah, definitely that there has to be some semblance of familiarity for me to feel like a place is home.
But staying on the physical, I mean, we're trying to be human this time and not. I mean, you guys are superhuman every day. I already said that, but you know.
Answer this question first.
Hey, pressure. On a physical level, eh?
Yeah, I guess that's where you want to go.
So I grew up here in Ghana. My mom is Malagasy, my father is Ghanaian, and I always felt like I had another home that I was not very familiar with, and I really sincerely felt imbalanced as an individual. And then, like in my late 20s, I saw people like Sena Dagadu and One Love, who come from different places, who I felt embodied some kind of balance between, and I think it gingered my longing for knowing and identifying more with this other home, So then I moved to Madagascar to be more balanced, or to find balance, to find self, and I found a lot of deja vus, like really, like maybe it's like in my mind from the stories my mom told me, but there's so many places that I felt like I knew even before I was in. It was so weird, and a certain peace like that came over me. So I mean, essentially, I think I have two homes, Ghana and Madagascar. I've been longer in Ghana and maybe just 3 years in Madagascar, but I think I'm getting closer to finding that space where I'm a complete human being, if you will.
Yo.
Returning to you guys. My mic is dancing too much. Emotions. Returning to you guys. Returning to you guys. So places, physical places. What places do you feel you're at home? We could do countries, then we could do like specific locations within countries.
Family. Every time I go to any of my siblings' home, and I think yes, it's physical, but it's also presence. It's also physical presence. Like the minute I know that I am in my brother's house, I'm home. I'm in my sister's house, I'm home. And it extends to some friends too. Like when I go to a friend's house and I'm really comfortable with my friend and their family, it's just like, this is another home. I'm comfortable here. I can speak freely. I can get lost in my thoughts. Just the habits that I do when I am in my own room. If I find myself doing it in a place, I am home.
You can be your authentic self without,
So.
If we'll go physical, I'll say maybe by country, Ghana is home to me. There's always been the dance in my life about living in another country at the same time, whether you should choose to also live here. And Ghana's home, we're just talking about cold weather, and there's this thing about the cold weather, where there's no, usually when you're here, you say it's cold outside. When you enter indoors, say everything is gonna be like warm, but there's like everywhere is a fridge,
even personalities most times.
Yes, and it's a constant reality, and that's a whole other place. I feel like as a child, that was my first enforcement about where home is, because all the time as a child, you think, I want to go abroad. Then you go there, and then the cold.
Too much TV.
Exactly. The snow. You want to see the snow. The cold was the first, like, wow. this is actually this. If this was home, this was going to be constant. This was going to be,
right?
you're going to go to school in this. You're going to be, And I think that was the first thing. And then afterwards, it's just like, yo, the streets to pass. You know which places to avoid where police are going to be. Your old school playground. Where you guys first had your first entertainment.
I know, right?
Like all those places, like. That I can point out, this is a road I used to use a lot to my school bus. It's home. So I'll say for me, place, that's what I'll say.
So far we've done like countries, and within Ghana, for example, there's a place called free advert for my friend Chico's, and it's 2 streets from my house. How I discovered it, I was going through a very trying period in my life. And then I just the neighborhood I live in is quite busy, quite noisy, and one of my walks, I think it was my sister who discovered it first, I don't remember, but this quiet place in a very busy neighborhood, and then I remember going there. I would go like 11 by myself, lunch, drink, and stay all day, work, whatever. It was just a very zen place to be. Eventually the owner became my friend, and still is, and it's one of those spaces that I can call my second home. I could really literally live there. And then also I was in Copenhagen. I don't know if that's how it's really pronounced. And there was a spot, I forget the name now, that myself and a friend of mine, a fellow poet, Black, used to hang out. And just the vibe, even though it was in a different country, yes, I could totally be there all day long, doing nothing but just, sitting in that place. Are there spots, are there places that do that for you, here or anywhere else? By the way, we're filming in Accra, Ghana.
Shout out to Ghana. I'll agree. I've had that kind of experience where you go to a lounge or a bar somewhere in the Netherlands or somewhere, and it just feels like the space is home. The people they are not people you've met before. They are different skin colors even, but suddenly the way things are set up, the way the music y'all are listening to, the music is home.
The spice in the food.
Yeah, the spice in the food, all of that, the spice in the food. Ethiopian restaurants were my favorites, and everyone loves Chinese, right? For some reason. But when Ghanaians go abroad, Chale, when you find Chinatown, it's home. Because exactly, you're craving, because we have a lot of Chinese food to home. That's also some transient thing that's also happened. That's interesting. So some of these things, I agree. I hear that.
I don't know about spots. Like I don't think I will. When you say home, I'll think of like a restaurant, a bar, and say home. I'm not sure.
Sister sentiment.
But you know what you were saying about Ethiopian restaurants, and it's that feeling like Ethiopian food. You have to use your hands, and it's just it's something you do at home. So being able to do that outside, maybe in that moment, you feel at home. But for me, so there's this weird thing about me, right? I can dance depending on how safe I feel, right? So maybe you see me dancing today, another time you see me and it's not working.
You're so stiff.
It's because like the vibe no day, like I don't feel safe.
I agree.
And like it depends on who I am with, how the environment is for me to feel like yes, I can move without restriction. And I feel like there have been. That's why I'm struggling to attribute it to the sport. Right, it could be a different.
It's a vibe,
like different mix of elements. It could be the DJ, the music selection. It could be the people that went with. It could be the drink, the cocktail. So I struggle to attribute to the sports because that means it's constantly that place, but it really is the atmosphere.
How's it like when you go to a club in Chicago and then they start to play Wizkid or suddenly as soon as they start to play Nigerian music or Sacro D,
So one time I was at this fashion for charity event, and there was this popular song last year. I forget, like this
from GH or Nigeria.
GH. Every bar was playing it. I forget the song, but like it was American songs, and then suddenly It was a Ghanaian song, and I remember I was just smiling. Like, you guys realize, like, that
We made it.
My mood entirely changed, and I didn't even realize, right, that my mood had changed. Yeah. So because, like, sometimes home just, like you said, home just hits you. So it definitely felt those moments. Yeah.
Before I go to the next one, so this is home, for example, like home literally, but home because these are two very good friends of mine, so the vibe is different. For the record, I don't talk this much in general, but the company and the vibe is on point, and the cocktails. But so moving from the physical, both of you being poets, myself as well, so three of us, would you call poetry a place you called home?
I'd love to hear Poetra's answer to that.
Yes. Poetry is definitely a home. Initially, I was going to say I wouldn't call it a home because poetry allows me to explore different feelings. But I guess that is what a home is. That it is a safe space that you can get to be angry, you can get to be lovely, you can get to reminisce, you can get to cry. And so poetry definitely is a safe space. And I think for me, my definition of a home is a safe space, really. And so anything that falls into that category, anything that allows me to express myself, including silence, is
very important, including
silence. Home. So, and poetry has done that several, not just, I just think writing has saved my life. And it has also saved other people in my life's life, because if I didn't have writing, I would definitely kill them.
Thanks to my sanity, you are safe.
Yeah. So I think that writing has saved collective lives, and it is a safe space for me. It's home for me to process my existence. Yeah.
Can I go before you, Akos? Yes. You were asking me earlier, we're talking about like childhood and how I was as a child, and I was totally quiet. I could go days without talking to anyone, home or in school, you know. I mean, the silence is what nursed my creativity and activism. But I've forgotten. I've lost my train of thoughts.
We're talking about silence and also poetry as well.
Yeah. So poetry became really the place where I found my voice because I wasn't talking anywhere else, you know. I would have loved for music too, but music came later. Politics and everything else involved. Finding the music that resonates with one's personality soul is a complicated process. So poetry found me faster, I guess. And then that was it for me.
Yeah, same with me. Poetry was, I think, the first art form before acting and before the others, and it was a space for expression. So it definitely always is home, no matter how many times I run away from it. I don't perform anymore, you know, but I still write poetry, and I write it in the darndest times, you know, and I just realized it was my immediate go-to when there's silence as a child, and it's like you're processing so much, there's so much experience, you don't know how to also put in the words. And poetry gives you that concise, you know, and poetry is also not so explicit, so it also has some silence within it as well. It's home for all these things.
I mean, we're uncovering different facets of who we are through this particular conversation, which is good. We're digging deeper. Poetry being one of them, activism is another. Before we came, like, you know, on camera, we're talking about, like, you know, our secondary school experiences, all the yawa involved, and how one of our friends, you know, who's behind the camera, Salom, was saying that, you know, the teachers, you could be compared to like our leaders in you know, and even prison wardens, and how they are what do I call that, like allies of the system, if you will, and perpetrators, you know,
Big brother.
Yeah, big brother. And you know, it's like a microcosm of the larger world that we would grow to face, you know, all this mess, you know. And I think definitely activism is one of the homes that we found, you know, in this life, you know. Speak to me about that experience, Akos and Po.
No, say no. I won't say activism is home. Activism is necessary. It's my work. It's what I have to do so that I can maintain home, or so that, or while still maintaining home. Because in this life I've realized the war is just constant. There's never a point where there's been global peace. When everything calmed down, then war started up somewhere else. Or because there's just too many energies, too many vibrations. It can't ever be that way. So if I make activism my home, this is what would always be me. So it can't be my home. But my home fuels the drive for it. My home gives me the energy and the passion to still maintain despite it. My home gives me the love to still hold in my heart because it's a war zone for me, despite what you see. And if you don't have home to remind you of love, your eyes will just see death.
Ooh.
So that was what I was saying.
Too many punchlines.
I wasn't punching.
I know, but you unintentionally.
Yeah, I agree with Akosua, like 99%. And I also think that activism can be home, another 99%. But yes, there's this saying, which of course I can't remember accurately because memory is fickle. Something about activists. The activists rarely label themselves as activists. Because they're always in the middle of the fight. It's only people who have the luxury who call themselves activists.
Say that again.
It's a very
You two, they drop lines.
I saw it somewhere, I'm sure on Twitter. It's a very debatable
Don't say it
quote.
again.
Activists rarely label themselves activists because they are always in the middle of the fight.
Yeah.
But it's only those who have the luxury who call themselves activists. And of course, like I say, it's debatable because there is benefit in sometimes labeling or identifying yourself as an activist. But I think that, activism can be home because, like Akosua said, we are always fighting for something. So it's a process. It's not often it's not a destination. And so we are always fighting for something, but there are smaller victories, right? And the evidence of the smaller victory is something that you can find home in. And so in that moment, it becomes home. For instance, NSAS happening and being able to label or being able to see people coming together and feeling, that in some way there is some element of home in it, or like just seeing communities. Maybe the end goal hasn't been achieved, but just in that moment, this is my kin. And it's only when you're at home that you recognize people as your kin. So I think it's both ways. Like activism can both be home and also not like home as a destination, like home in person.
I hear that. Yeah, because there are times where you're mentioning things like you're in a protest, and then suddenly it's like the way everyone's just chanting. How people feel that feeling, right? That immediately becomes like, wow, this is us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you guys turned out fairly good as human beings. Actually extraordinary. But sincerely, if we were to take notes, what would you say you did differently? I don't know if you're conscious of it, but like we grew up in some very effed up systems, went through the same horrible schools that we're trying to unlearn some of the things we learned, relearn. Like how do you say you managed to escape the madness and be different, do different, You be heavy one, but you guys, you be poets, so I know they give you lightweight.
I think if maybe the question is I don't know if be different is the word, because
be extraordinary, exemplary, magnificent.
But I think that personally, my saving grace has been rebelling, even against my parents. And in some ways, they nurtured me that way, allowing me to grow without restrictions at a very young age meant that I
shouts to the diakas.
I could rebel against they too. And I think really that's been my saving grace, that I've always not been afraid to question.
Yeah.
Even if the questioning was silence, or not been afraid to, or even being afraid but going on regardless. And I think about my life, and I think that's my saving grace, really.
Follow up question before Akos. You've mentioned silence twice. It's really important. How often do you feel like you need to resort to silence? To
a lot, because as you know about me, when I'm small passion, I overtalk.
Sister sentiment.
Yeah, I overflow a lot, and silence has kind of been therapeutic for me. It's been like a place I have to go to.
A place called home.
To think things through, to allow things to, and it's also been like a litmus test. If I'm passionate about something in silence, like in speech or in noise, and then after silence I'm still passionate about it, it means it's passed both tests. And so for me, silence is important to me just as equally as speaking up,
as the movement.
So what's the question? On silence?
No, the question is I'm growing old. What's the question?
Okay, so you just move on to your next question.
Okay. No, I want to remember this one. It was important. How did we turn out differently? How did you guys specifically turn out extraordinary, regardless of the effed up systems that we grew up in?
I don't know that. I think I'm still in it. I don't know that I've turned out a way yet.
You did.
Okay, well,
you're amazing,
I guess
love.
it's thank you. I mean, honestly, thank you that you even think that, and you can even sit here and say it to me. Thank you. I guess maybe is your vantage point and where you are. Like as I'm here, my eyes are red. Like everything is red to me right now. I can't begin to think, oh, glory, extraordinary, finished journey. Nah,
I know.
Like I'm not there. I'm not there yet. I guess I don't know if I'll ever be there.
Just to cut in, but I think it isn't so much as your personal journey alone, but it's a comparison. Like, say there were a room of 10 Ghanaians, and that's the 10 Ghanaians, and say the two of us know fuck up more than
they collect bribe.
No.
Let's say it be class test, right? Where everybody for score 10, right? Where you say your personal achievement at least you should score 8, but you score 5, right? However, in the class of 10, everybody score 1, 2, 1, 2. So they are comparing you. The 5 be good. So the question is, even though it may not be your standard, how is it that you've still managed to get half
the extra 3? No.
Yeah, I think that's
okay. So I think my answer to that was I didn't even know the number I was on that rating. Okay. Yeah, that's really where it was. But I guess acknowledging what you're seeing, right? Maybe it's us having these conversations, right? And I guess letting our communities reflect on these things, us reflecting on these things. I feel like now talking to you and also talking to others previously, they'll point out things. Today you've mentioned already Ashiki-shan, and then it made me realize, Angela directed this, and Angela didn't do theater before she came to Drama Queens. So now I see that yardstick and that's a good one. And so I recognize that. Yes. Yeah, but
I also think in this conversation, what's making me realize is that maybe it is that this is who. It's not that she's turned out different. This is who she's been trained to be.
Trained how? And
so that's a different question. It's differently saying how we trained, but it's like
I know, right?
Like, but it's to say that this is who your parents, your community says that we want a
different seats were sown
to be. And so, for instance, for me, I know that that's not I know that my parents want me to stand out, but I know that my mother didn't anticipate going for protests, being the voice. Like,
right?
Like
my daughter should come home.
Like being she wants me to stand out, but she doesn't want me to be in harm's way. Like I know those
I know the
things,
feeling.
Right? So that's why I'm answering these questions. That's why I'm saying even rebelling against them.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe it could also be this is
parental.
This is who we wanted her to be,
and then she waits that.
And right. Yeah. So that's also another question to think about. Yeah.
That's a good question.
I know, right?
Mommy, Daddy, do we make you proud?
Do you worry about that? Validation of parents and family and community?
Because I feel like as you gather more years, you now start to realize your parents did put a considerable amount of their time, effort, love, and all sorts of things into you, right? And now they they feel okay, so what does this gift that kept on giving give us to, you know? And I feel it heavily. It's precious. I feel it. Like, am I making enough now to support to, you know, all these questions are up. And so that's why I feel queasy, because I'm not supporting the way I should support, you know? And so much was given to me. So much. I don't think I've given back that much.
But is it your humility / overthinking things that says...
It's not humility overthinking. Yo, there's bills that's gotta be paid.
I know, right?
There's people who are going older and need to eventually be taken care of.
Yeah.
You have to eventually start to, you know, take over certain responsibilities
On the material level.
I'm even talking material level. So there's even the tangibles, you know, that gives people everyday comfort and security, you know, as they age, you know, all these things like
which is important, actually.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we were talking earlier off camera about, for example, a lot of our GH so-called celebrities who can fight against a cause, speak against something, and then election time, then they are switching lanes to endorsing a political a candidate or an agenda that is counter, you know, the stance that they had earlier, you know. So yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but so I mean, all of this talks is directly or indirectly about finding self, who we are, really, right? If we're not on the physical level of the places we call home, then this is about the spiritual / sentiment places that we can refer to as home, poetry, activism, and all. What has that journey been like? Finding who you are, your authentic self, and being comfortable in that space when you find it. And yeah, easy. I mean, yeah, easy cry. Like the journey to being Akos, authentic self, you know, as a poet, as I don't even want to put poet there because it then narrows it down to some specific field, but who you are, you know, understanding everything that makes you alive as a soul, as a person, you know. How did you come there? If you can remember, if you can recollect, and if you can give words to it, and find comfort in being there, you know, unashamedly. Is that if that word exists, you know? Yeah.
Poetra, you wanna go?
So I don't think that I am on a journey to be a one amma. Like, I don't think that the who I am is like a destination, because for me, I feel like I am, and that's like, I think earlier when we were talking about, like, I'm always so sure of where I'm going. I'm not necessarily sure of where I'm going, but I am sure of where, who I want to be, or I'm sure of the impact I want to have, or what I want to see, right? But I always don't know how to get there. So and I always feel like these things are always changing. Because I never ever saw myself being an artist and also a platform maker or like a facilitator. Like, it's not something I have been consciously thinking of years ago and I didn't even know I would even perform years back, like all those things. And I feel like they keep changing for me, and what I am learning is to be affirmed in whichever ideas I have, to allow myself to make mistakes, to allow myself to learn from mistakes, and if I don't make mistakes, to be even pushed to do more. So I don't think there's one amma. Maybe today this
multiplicity
amma
of ammas, depending on context and time.
In my 20s, this amma is going to be very harsh, very say what she wants without being afraid. And in my 30s, amma is going to be softer but firmer. And in my 40s, I'll switch to being harsh. Who knows? I think like, that's. There isn't one amma for me. There's like, I'm on a journey to just be the best me I can be in whichever phase.
Sorry, Akos, follow-up question. You can tell the question is going to be. You should be afraid of a question. It's coming. God. So for me and your love interests, future and present, how would we know which of the phases you're in? You say you did switch, like in your 20s, you may be harsh amma, but we need to understand so we can, be in sync somehow.
Oh, but all these they don't take away from the foundational person.
Oh wow,
Right.
wow.
It's not like sake of I'm harsh. It means I will be what's the word? I will be stingy with my love. Right. Maybe it's like being overflows with my love is something that's part of my character till death. But it means that I will maybe with my words, I will just decide I'm not going to mince words with you in a certain stage of my life. And other times I'll be more deliberate, I will have more time to explain certain things. And another time in my life, I'm like, like if depending on my relationship, I don't want to waste this amount of time talking about this. You can do your own research. I feel like, and really I'm literally picking examples. I feel like in my 20s, I had all the time to be in all the debates.
Yeah.
And in my 30s, I'm just like, nope.
Choosing my battles. Yeah.
And I just think it's...
And 40, no BS.
Yeah, there's still some layer of me that's constant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that... I what's the word? I add up on... I mature.
And I need to figure out, along with the love interest, what the constant is in your life. Akos.
What's the constant? I agree with everything Poetra said, man. I definitely agree with it. All I'll add is maybe there's an inner monologue. There's always this inner monologue that's there. That was there when I don't remember this, but I was 2 years old at my parents' wedding, and my only memory of it was the dress was just itchy. And I didn't understand why they were making
they
me
punish
wear
me?
Like still wear it, but that was my
Charlie.
only memory of the day. And I don't even remember what the dress looked like, but when the picture is shown, I immediately remember the feeling of it. I know it's this dress by feeling. You know, I don't remember what it looks like. But that inner monologue of that person is the same voice today. You know, despite how she's grown. So I think it's that.
Yeah. I mean, I have two questions in one. COVID times, because it's not going, unfortunately, for a while, I think. By the time you watch this podcast, I think we'll still be dealing with masks and the like. And I think home can somewhat be equated to love, a place where you feel most loved or close to that feeling. Where is home in COVID? How is love in COVID? Oh, that was nice.
Pass.
Oh my goodness.
Where is home in COVID?
Where is home? Yeah.
Where's love in COVID? That's the real answer. So you know, she tried to twist
He
that.
asked two questions.
No, the home is a love. She gave you home equals love. Therefore, love is where.
She did try swerve out.
I don't know how affected you were by COVID.
Yeah.
But for instance, I was on a contract, and I was one of the contractors that was dropped
Oh wow.
because of COVID. So literally, my income was affected, which directly affects home because rent, food, you have to think. So really, COVID, thinking of home in COVID was however I was going to get food to eat, right? And it links into love as well, because love was the people who ensured that I never starved. Even if they put a report out here, but it may be the year the people have given the most, which is surprising because you know we are in a pandemic, and for me that's where love was here. It was in this pandemic. Really, people who looked out for me when it was I was at my literal worst, and you can't tell me. Yeah.
But on you again before Akos. Forgive me. You lived in Chicago and went through hell, if I can call it that, to come home to this place called home, physical place.
Did you come during COVID?
Well, I was trying to come during COVID. Yeah.
I want to share a little of that experience, what it was like away from your so-called home.
Yeah.
So
like during the period that I was in, I think I mentioned this earlier, that I for 2 years I didn't furnish my apartment because I kept thinking this is not home, this is temporary. And when we are talking, like I go on a vacation, people will say they're going home, they'll go back to their parents, or like even all the other international students, when they're holidays, everybody goes back home. When I was in school, I always say home. I use home as Ghana. And this was the first time that I felt homeless. And it wasn't as in my home had been taken from me. You know, that's kind of different. Like you have, and something has been snatched. It was like my home didn't want to, right? And so I remember I would message people and tell them, I think I'm officially countryless. I don't belong to Ghana. I definitely don't belong to America. I belong to God. I was saying this all the time. I'm hanging in the middle because it was just weird to like this nonchalance from the institution or the government, like figure out your own way out.
I remember
Like
at some point you bought a ticket and they're like, no, like
yes, you know, and things had been, even the path to getting that ticket was another hell because tickets had increased by like 700%.
oh wow.
Yeah, it was mad. Like it was insane. And we had this earlier conversation. People had to fund one because they were factoring into COVID, so the tickets were. They are not thinking about going back flights, so it was just incoming flights, and so they had packed all that into it. And you have to, because there was quarantine, you have to fend for yourself for all that. And so people who couldn't make it, they're just like, well, if you can't, fuck it, fend for yourself. So yeah, it was really the first time where home has always been like a place. Like I'm Ghanaian by birth. I can't be anything. It's like you wake up and you're going like I can't say tomorrow I'm just like that. It has to go through something, and then just being, it can't be snatched from me. Like it can't be a decision I can take by myself. Like I can just be there and it can be snatched from me. So yeah, this was the first time. It's never something I thought I would ever feel. And I feel like people who go through that are people who have been exiled. I'm not saying it's right, but like people who have, it's a cause effect thing. And just by way of the pandemic, I didn't have